I love the beginning of Matthew 7.
Okay.
Um, this is one of
I
those
actually
that
really like it too. I really like it too.
this is one of those that to me it speaks to the core tenets of what it means to be a decent person to begin with. And most people, I just don't hear most people latching on to any kind of meaning here. For anyone who's not familiar, it's basically don't judge, or you'll be uh, subject to the same judgment that you give, kind of thing. Really, the whole premise is don't judge, don't measure. But
I
the go ahead.
I was gonna say it's maybe may or may not be an interpolation of this, but I really like the. I feel like it's in the same vein, but it was the only reason that you should be looking in your neighbor's bowl is to make sure that they have enough.
Yes, same concept. Because
Yeah.
I mean, one of the pieces or one of the statements is like, why would you look at the speck in your brother's eye but not notice the one in your own, kind of thing. Um, it's all about the general perception of why would you look at another person in judgment or attempting to measure them to something or looking at their defects or anything else, knowing full well that you're a hypocrite and have your own sets of things that are falling short of being virtuous. Maybe that's a good semi-politically correct way to summarize.
Yeah. Yeah. Or even just like what i- if you're
Well, the only reason I was saying semi-politically correct is because virtuous as a description maybe doesn't quite fit. But I think it's in the spirit of uh, religion as far as a conversation goes to use virtuous as the label instead of just being a good person.
mm-hmm.
I think it captures the idea a little bit better because within the spirit of religious text, you're attempting to attain something that you are incapable of attaining. Whereas I think you are capable of attaining being a good person, but you're never going to be capable of attaining being a perfect person. But the messaging hasn't been be perfect, right? So it's you strive for perfection, knowing full well you will not reach it. Um,
Yeah.
but that's kind of a misinterpretation as opposed to being virtuous, where you're striving for not only this idea of being a perfect person, but also this idea of assisting and bringing up others. That to me would be more the definition of virtuous as opposed to just being a good person, even though the argument could be made that to be a good person, you would be doing the same thing.
Mm-hmm. I also like how this passage ends with um, the the proverbial not throwing your pearls to swine. Because I like the idea. I really enjoy the idea that it's like just because you have something great doesn't mean that someone else is ready to hear it, and you know, be 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 judicious about how you know who you spend your time with, how much you're handing out. Basically, don't help those that don't want to be helped.
Yeah, I don't think I would argue with that at all. Um, it's not the quite the same way that I interpret that piece, but it fits. Like the way I interpret it is a little more along the lines of you're not here to give specifically things that are not necessarily things that you should give. Kind of going back to the conversation about if you're providing aid, you're not there to give pearls and aid or Bibles and aid. You're there to give aid, and if they want to know more, great. It's not tossing something that shouldn't be a part of that action. So it's a slightly, I mean, it's the same kind of the same concept, but it is slightly different, and so I figure it's worth mentioning it in that way. Which is, I guess, to illuminate the thought process there. It's difficult a lot of times to take the literal, like, don't throw your pearls to pigs, and figure out what that translates into as a kind of ideological and behavioral statement, right?
Oh,
I just realized not everybody knows my thought processes behind the scenes.
yeah, I like this passage.
How do you interpret the next section? Like which, or maybe a better way to phrase it isn't how you interpret it. How would you explain the next section's meaning based on your understanding of it?
Well,
And I have a method or a reason for asking that we'll get to, but I don't want to taint the discussion in that direction yet. I want to keep the honest assessment of the passage different from the misuse of the passage that is relatively commonplace based on my view.
my current non-religious take on it would be that if you can't, if you don't ask, somebody can't say yes. So I, it's a lot of this feels like I don't want to say empty promises from a invisible deity, but I guess to say the concept of like if you're not if you're not asking the right people for help, you'll never get help, or it's hard to get help, or that's not even, I don't even know if that's fair to say. This one's a tougher one for me because it's been a while since I've seen it and tried to come up with a non-religious take on it, but
that's fair. So the reason I asked the way I asked is this tends to be where I hear a lot of people justify selfish requests.
oh yeah, I remember. So the version of Christianity that I grew up with, they would the people who take it and have these selfish requests, they defined it as name it and claim it Christianity.
I haven't heard that phrasing, but that makes sense.
But it was, it's just like, ask God for $1 million and, he will provide a way to give you $1 million, and just keep asking, and like a lot of material things and, on this world. And the teaching that I grew up with it, that it wasn't that. It was more along the lines of seeking spiritual guidance, ask, and you'll ask for spiritual guidance, and that spiritual guidance will be given to you. It was very much a non-material thing, or the interpretation that I was taught was a non-material interpretation.
That's closer to how I would describe it. So this section has a few different components to it for me. One is kind of along the lines of how you started out, where nobody can say yes if you don't ask, right? There's an element of if you need something, you should ask for it. But there's also a recognition of asking for the right thing, not just asking for whatever you want, and an aspect of if you keep searching for the right thing or for the good thing and asking for the good thing, eventually you will find it, and you will find those who want to help, and the types of people that you would surround yourself with to both lift you up and to lift everyone else up. So kind of the embodiment of decent people, right? And what's interesting about it for me is taking it kind of to kind of taking it a step further, because we've had a little bit of a side conversation about this last little piece of the section before, where it's talking about therefore whatever you want others to do for you, do also for them.
Yeah.
And I can understand multiple interpretations of that, and I get it. But I think taking this set of passages in context, it makes sense to keep the verbiage that way, because it's specifically talking about if you're asking for the right things and if you're pursuing the right things. It's not talking about how you engage in everyday like relationship style figuring out people. There's a little bit of a difference. There's some nuance there. But there's a little bit of a difference between navigating the world and understanding people and trying to treat people in a way that is respectful for their decisions versus looking for these things that you have identified as the right things to look for and pursue. I think that makes sense.
Yeah, I think so too. I was going to say that was the sort of interpretation that I grew up with, and even to the point. I guess one of the things as I've gotten older, and in the section where it talks about how you know how to give good, you as the evil person knows how to give good gifts to your children. You know, God's going to know what, even better how to give good gifts to you. I as a kid grew up thinking, okay, that's great, and then as I got older, I met people who did not have good relationships with or did not have a good childhood and did not have a good, the same sort of good parents that maybe reflected in this passage. And so it just kind of made it like, I knew people that were like, yeah, they just had a hard time with that particular passage, and it sort of opened my eyes to that not everybody experiences that sort of lifestyle. I'm not sure where I was going to go with that, though.
It's a difficult one. I mean, I kind of glossed over that one passage, not for any specific reason, but because I was trying to take the the overall ideas, kind of from a thematic, I guess, discussion point, because it's difficult to tell whether this is very specifically a subcomponent to attempt to draw something out of, or if it's a continuation of the idea of pursuing the right things, which you could draw from the if you're asking for bread and giving a stone instead, or why would you give something that is not what is needed or asked for? That concept, then you could think of it as a further explanation of that idea, but you could also take it as a standalone. But even in this act of doing something that is maybe not meeting the idea of giving what's needed or pursuing what's needed or right, there's still some level of aid in that action, even if it's not rooted in being a good person, for lack of other phrasing. That whatever you choose to be your guiding principle, assuming that you weren't choosing the religious-based ideas, that whatever you choose to be your guiding principle would still reach or bring you to or cause you to kind of recenter on a better point, or something that is more suited to that thing that you need, even though your actions might have been misguided. There's an element that you could pull from that's different, I think, than the kind of initial read that I went with, but still kind of in line with the idea of returning to a state of balance. I don't know. It feels like it could be a bit of a reach to try to explain that one, and it feels like it could also be a part of the overall theme. I would leave that more to interpretation.
Yeah. The last verse here, number 12. That's the one that I feel like I've had given more thought to in recent years, and this is famously the golden rule. So just do to others as you would have them do to you. And I came across some writings that talked about it's like that's great, but what if the people, what if whom you're talking to wants to be treated differently than you? It makes me think of this joke about the sadist and the masochist. The masochist says, "Hurt me," and the sadist says, "No." I wasn't expecting that to bomb so bad, but
It didn't. Sorry.
Anyway,
I was going back to some of the conversations that we've had around it.
Well, I was gonna say I remember reading someone talking about the platinum rule, and the platinum rule, the platinum rule being treat others the way they wish to be treated.
I mean, so we're going to spend some time here. I mean, we spent some time on it before, but like even that interpretation, I have problems with, right? Because if you think about the whole idea of, say, someone wants to be flogged because they find pleasure in pain, is that an appropriate choice?
Well, I mean, among consenting adults, yeah.
Well, but that, based on the interpretation of treating others how they want to be treated, would mean that if I am a unconsenting adult because I don't want to inflict pain on someone, but in order to show respect, I would be inflicting pain on someone. It's the same problem as if I am wanting to show empathy to someone, but they are wanting to receive pain for that relationship.
So you just might have to, not use a single rule and say this is how you should go out into the world, and actually pay some fucking attention to the people that you're around.
That's very true.
I appreciate your criticism of the platinum rule.
But where I was going with it, and why I said we're going to be here for a bit, is rules are great for various reasons, and rules are horrible for various reasons. Like that's just a purely objective analysis of rules. Like the attempting to boil down to a single line item how to exhibit this idea of being a good person has its problems because we don't live in a binary universe. I mean, that's the fun way to put it, right? Like there are so many shades of gray, and we get lost when we ignore the shades of gray, and that's the problem. And that's where I find all of this discussion to be, this discussion and many other discussions to be so horrifically misunderstood, I think, is a good way to think of it. Because just to use an absurd example, because it's fun, the gender debate, the fact that you have people who want to equate biological sex to gender, and you have to identify with your biological sex, or you're strange, or whatever, are very much attempting to take a binary biological construct and say that it affects everything about a person. And it's so dumb. and this is where it becomes difficult, is how can you think things only have two answers ever? I mean, there are certain things that you could boil down to two answers. For example, male, female, as far as biological sex, because of differing physical anatomy. But just because we haven't identified a third one yet doesn't mean it doesn't exist. And there's that lack of acknowledging another option could be there that permeates so much of how we view everything. And we being the global we, view everything about human interaction and religious choice, or ideological principles, or political alignment, or, I mean, take your pick. It's baffling that it seems to be it's either A or B, when the reality is that in most areas it could be anything from A to infinity.
We have a number of different ways set up for you to get in touch with us to provide feedback, ask questions, or just comment in about something we've discussed.
You can hit us up on Twitter or Instagram at untitled_hosts, or shoot an email over to untitled.hosts@gmail.com.
Or get in touch directly with Jesse at jthart.com, or get in touch with me, John, via telepathy.
If you would like to support our work or are interested in listening to our new after-show feed, head over to patreon.com/theUntitledPodcast and take a look at the options we have set up.
Thank you for listening.
We hope you've enjoyed the show.
And we hope to connect with more of you as we continue this journey.
That's a wrap.